In an interview in 2011, you said that a strong opposition is good for the PAP and for Singapore as well. And so having witnessed the change in the political landscape since the 2011 general election, do you think Singapore is now better off?
Well, I think Singapore is better off because people are much more engaged now. Many more people are thinking about Singapore, expressing their views, and also more people who are getting involved through their own initiatives, getting together with friends and people who feel the same way as them and doing something, whether it's about our heritage or our environment or doing something with the poor, with the elderly. A lot more people are involved. So civil society is more active and people are just a lot more aware of issues. And I think that's been a positive. I think too that the PAP has changed and continues to change. It's a very open party when it comes to listening to views and trying to gather views from people who don't necessarily agree with you. There's been a fair bit of shift in that regard. You can't just go with the whims of the day, but in deciding on our basic policy objectives and our preferences for the long term, we've got to listen to people, but also involve them in the thinking process. Because when you involve people in the thinking process, they become very aware of the trade-offs.
When you talk about listening to people, getting here critical views, is there a risk that the PAP becomes populist as a result?
There's that risk, and we're aware of it, and we will guard against it. I think if you look at our last two budgets, where there's been a significant increase in social spending, and we've also given a clear signal of the direction we're going, it's not an unguarded view. It's not about unconditional social spending. Basically, our whole approach is different from the type of populism which we saw grow from the 1970s until the 2000s in many of the Western countries. Our whole approach rests on a paradox of providing government support for individual effort and initiative. Providing government support for individuals and families who are taking responsibility. So it's not about unconditional entitlements, nor is it about leaving people to the whims of the market, letting them fend for themselves. It's not simply an approach of assuming that self-reliance creates a strong society. It's about, as best as we can, providing government support for individual effort and responsibility. And that's why we focus, first, on education and social mobility. Second, focus on work. The culture of work must still be at the heart of our society. And if you work, we will support you. Your incomes may be low, we'll give you workfare. We help you upgrade. We subsidize your training. So rewarding people through work is a very important second plank. Third, housing. There's something to owning a home, even if you're lower income. And the fact that 8 out of 10 of low-income folk in Singapore own a home, way above any other country, is, I think, a real plus for our society. We introduced the special housing grants 2 years ago to enable even low-income folk, low-income young and middle-aged couples to buy a home. There's something to a home-owning culture all over the world. All over the world, you find that those who own homes first will stay at work. They'll make sure they have a job because they want to service the loan and they want to make sure they don't lose the home. It's just a more positive culture where even low-income people can share in prosperity because the value of your home goes up over time. And it's important not to have a society where it's only the rich or the upper middle income group that sees asset appreciation over the long term. Even poor people, when they retire, will have an asset. Not through asset bubbles, but simply because our economy as a whole has done well and they're able to share in prosperity, not just through their wages, but because they've got an asset that they retire with.
GE 2011 was also significant because it was the first time that the GRC had fallen. Do you think the GRC can be tweaked while still preserving the original intent of preserving the minority representation in Parliament?
I think the last time round we moved towards somewhat smaller GRCs. my view is we can move a little further in that same direction. It'll make things more contestable. It'll provide for more competition. And you can do it in a way that still ensures a minority representation. It's not a bad way of ensuring minority representation in Parliament. Better than more artificial ways, where someone gets in only because they're a minority through a special vote. This way, basically, you're part of a team, and very often you'll find that the minorities in the team are leading members of the team.